Before we get started, make sure to subscribe to our channel and click the bell icon so you never miss an update. Hashtag the signs I should have seen. At first, I refused to accept what was happening. These situations always seem to occur to other people, colleagues, acquaintances, even your closest friends, but never to you personally. You tell yourself your relationship is special, that those extended hours at work, the disrupted dinners from urgent calls, the spontaneous business excursions, they're just normal life challenges. Just a temporary difficulty. That's what I convinced myself about Sharon. For several months, her career had consumed her entire existence. It began innocuously, staying late occasionally, leaving early some mornings. Then it worsened. She'd return home visibly drained, barely exchanging a handful of words before heading directly to shower. Weekends, which were previously reserved for us, suddenly became filled with additional work responsibilities. The job has been relentless lately, she claimed. I can hardly find time to catch my breath. I wanted to trust her words, I genuinely did. But it was becoming increasingly difficult. The subtle changes began accumulating. She stopped reaching for me during the night, stopped sending messages throughout my day like before. We used to share private jokes, small rituals that defined our relationship. But now it felt like I was sharing space with a housemate. Then another business trip appeared, 3 days away. I forced myself to suppress the persistent unease in my stomach, the voice of suspicion that had been strengthening daily. I refused to become that type of husband, jealous, doubtful. I reassured myself it was merely work demands. But upon her return, something shifted. I was preparing coffee in the kitchen when she walked past toward our bedroom, pulling her suitcase behind her. I'm completely drained, she sighed. That trip was intense. I watched her disappear down the hallway, my insides churning. Something seemed wrong. Minutes later, as I passed the open luggage on our bed, something caught my attention. Lace, a pair of black lingerie. Intricate, seemingly costly. Something unfamiliar to me. It wasn't her typical preference. Sharon usually favored soft materials, basic comfort. She wasn't inclined to wear such provocative items. For a moment, I considered questioning her about it, but I hesitated. Perhaps she purchased it during her trip. Perhaps it meant nothing. Nevertheless, discomfort tightened in my stomach. I told myself I was overanalyzing, that creating conflict wasn't worthwhile. So I disregarded it, foolishly. 2 days afterward, Sharon borrowed my vehicle. Her car had malfunctioned again. Something regarding the battery. She mentioned needing to complete several errands and asked to use mine. Certainly, I replied, offering her the keys. Just remember to refill the gas. She flashed a brief smile before exiting. The following morning, as I prepared to leave, I searched for my car keys in their usual location. They weren't present. I checked the kitchen counter initially. Nothing. The hallway table remained empty. My jacket pocket revealed nothing either. I frowned. I consistently placed my keys in one of those 3 spots. Then I recalled Sharon had taken my car yesterday. Perhaps she forgot to return the keys. I entered our bedroom. The sound of running water resonated from the bathroom, steam escaping through the partially open door. Sharon was showering. Her handbag rested on the nightstand, partially open. I paused. I had never been someone who investigated, never felt compelled to examine her belongings. But these were merely my keys, correct? There was nothing inappropriate about looking. I reached into her purse, searching for the familiar shape of my key fob. My fingers touched something small. A container? A jewelry box. My breath caught as I opened it and lifted the lid. Inside, cushioned in velvet, lay a breathtaking diamond necklace. Fine, tasteful, and unmistakably expensive. My stomach sank. Where had this come from? I knew with certainty that I hadn't purchased it. And if Sharon had bought it herself, she would have displayed it proudly, showing it off as she typically did with new acquisitions. She enjoyed attention. She craved praise. But she hadn't mentioned this necklace at all. I stood motionless, the open box still in my grasp, my thoughts racing. First the intimate apparel. Now a concealed diamond necklace in her purse. Something was amiss. Seriously amiss. I wanted to believe a reasonable explanation existed. A present from a friend. A professional incentive. But I recognized the truth. That evening, I barely communicated with her. She didn't appear to notice. She was engaged with her phone, scrolling, absently messaging someone. She was so immersed in whatever conversation occupied her that she didn't even inquire about my well-being. Didn't perceive the alteration in my behavior. The silent strain permeating the atmosphere. When she finally drifted to sleep, I made a choice. I waited until her breathing became deep and regular, then carefully removed her phone from the nightstand, left the bedroom, and settled in the living room. Taking a deep breath, I unlocked it. My hands trembled. I didn't want to discover anything, yet simultaneously I needed certainty. I examined everything. Messages, standard emails, mundane work matters. Call history. No one suspicious. No unfamiliar numbers. No late-night conversations. Nothing. No evidence. No confirmation. But my instinct insisted I wasn't imagining things. Something was wrong. I simply couldn't prove it. Therefore, the next morning, I made another decision. I employed a private detective. The investigator, Joseph, was straightforward. The kind who avoided wasting time with courtesies or presumptions. He posed several direct questions, documented the information, and commenced his work. Initially, he discovered nothing. Sharon's pattern appeared normal. She went to work, remained late, then drove home. No unusual diversions. No clandestine encounters. No questionable conduct. Briefly, I felt ridiculous. Perhaps I was simply being paranoid. Perhaps the emotional distance between us was just life's natural progression. People evolve. Marriages experience phases. But then there was the lingerie, the hidden jewelry, and how she had begun withdrawing from me. Gradually. No, this wasn't my imagination. So I instructed Joseph to continue observing. Several days later, Sharon had another business trip scheduled. She packed her belongings with her usual methodical approach, closing her suitcase while humming softly. I sat observing her, carefully searching her expression for any revealing sign. Nothing. She leaned closer, pressing a quick, distracted kiss against my lips. "See you in 3 days, babe." And just like that, she departed. The moment her car left the driveway, Joseph followed. For the subsequent 2 days, I remained anxious. Every few minutes I checked my phone, anticipating updates. Each notification made my stomach tighten. Each time the screen remained inactive, my thoughts spiraled. By the second morning, I could barely function. My heart pounded. My body remained tense. I had been expecting the worst, but somehow when it arrived, it still devastated me completely. Joseph called early that morning. His voice remained composed, measured, but his words destroyed me. "Danny, she's not traveling alone." My breathing halted in my lungs. "She's at a hotel with another man." A wave of sickness swept through me. I gripped the phone so firmly my hand became numb. "Who is he?" My voice barely exceeded a whisper. Joseph hesitated momentarily before answering. "His name is John. He's her colleague." I clenched my jaw so intensely it caused pain. Everything made sense now. The extended hours, the constant work communications, the emotional detachment. And then came the final revelation. He's married too. I pressed my fingers against my forehead, trying to stabilize myself. Sharon, my wife, deceiving me directly, pretending everything was fine while sneaking away to hotels with a married man. "I have photographs," Joseph stated. "I'm sending them to you now." Seconds later, my phone vibrated. I didn't want to view them, but necessity compelled me. I touched the screen, and there it was. Sharon and John sitting at the hotel lounge, laughing together like contented partners. The next image showed their hands touching, her smiling up at him the way she once smiled at me. Another showed them entering the elevator, his arm encircling her waist, her body leaning into his. Then outside their hotel room. And finally the image that demolished everything, Sharon and John kissing. My stomach contracted so violently I feared becoming ill. That was sufficient. That was all the confirmation I required. I didn't delay. I couldn't. That same afternoon, I entered a divorce attorney's office and initiated the paperwork. No hesitation, no reconsideration. I wanted her removed from my life as rapidly as possible. I refused to allow her opportunities to explain, to manipulate, to charm her way back with excuses. She had made her decision. Now she would face the consequences. The following evening, Sharon returned from her business trip acting as though nothing unusual had occurred. I was seated on the sofa when I heard the key turn in the lock. She entered, pulling her suitcase behind her, her face tired but relaxed. She dropped her bag on the floor, stretched, and offered me a small smile. "Hey, babe. The trip was exhausting. How was your weekend?" I remained silent. Instead, I reached into my pocket, retrieved my phone, and displayed the screen. "Why don't you tell me, Sharon?" Her smile vanished. Her eyes moved to the phone screen, to the images of her and John laughing together at the bar, standing outside their hotel room. Too familiar, and then kissing. For a moment, she simply froze. Where? Where did you get these? She whispered. I maintained my voice calm. Steady. Cold. Does it matter? Her eyes lifted to meet mine, and then she laughed, a short, nervous, breathless sound. Danny, this isn't what it appears to be. I released a short, bitter laugh. It's precisely what it appears to be. No. She stopped, shaking her head as though she could erase what I had already witnessed. It wasn't like that. I mean, yes, things happened, but what? I snapped, moving closer. But I wasn't supposed to discover it. Her lips parted, but she remained silent. And for the first time I recognized it. The truth in her silence. She never intended to confess. If I hadn't discovered her betrayal, if I hadn't hired the investigator, she would have continued this behavior, continued returning home, kissing me with the same lips she used to kiss him, sharing my bed, while giving herself to another man in some impersonal hotel room. I clenched my jaw, my entire body tense with emotions between fury and revulsion. She attempted again, her voice gentler this time. Danny, I didn't mean. I shook my head. I don't care what you say, Sharon. Gather your belongings. You're leaving. You're actually going to discard 7 years of marriage over this? She snapped. I released a humorless laugh. You discarded it the moment you entered that hotel with him. Her eyes filled with tears. Danny, please. We can repair this. It wasn't serious. I love you. I inhaled deeply and met her gaze. I'll forward the remainder of your possessions to your parents' residence. You can explain yourself to them. Her expression crumbled. She sobbed. Loudly, messily, desperately. But I remained unmoved. She grabbed her suitcase, still crying, and stumbled toward the exit. She paused momentarily, waiting for me to stop her. I didn't. She walked out, and I wasn't finished yet. After Sharon's departure, I remained seated for an extended period, not thinking, not moving, just breathing. And then I took action. She wouldn't escape this situation without consequences. She wouldn't pretend this never happened and continue as though nothing was wrong. The first action I took was scrolling through my contacts, locating Sharon's parents, and forwarding them the photographs. John and Sharon at the hotel bar, holding hands in the elevator, whispering in the hallway, kissing outside their room. No explanations. Just one message. This is your daughter's true nature. I'm finished with her. Expect her possessions within days. Next, I sent them to John's wife. I kept the message brief. Simple. Cold. I believed you should see these. Your husband has been unfaithful with my wife. Her response arrived quickly. Her reply was as severe as it was conclusive. Thank you. I'm leaving him. That was all. No anger, no questions. Just certainty. I stared at my screen, clutching my phone so tightly my fingers hurt. She deserved better than him and I deserved better than Sharon. She had lost everything within hours. Her marriage gone. Her home. No longer hers. Her reputation ruined. And for the first time in years, I felt liberated. The initial few nights alone in that house felt strange. Not because I missed her presence, but because everything felt considerably lighter without her. No more cold, distant exchanges. No more forced smiles. No more pretense. Months passed. The divorce was completed. I safeguarded my assets, ensured she received nothing from me while Sharon's life disintegrated. I rebuilt mine systematically. I sold the house too. I found a new apartment, a place devoid of memories of her, where each room wasn't filled with remnants of a marriage that had been deteriorating long before I discovered the truth. I immersed myself in work, fitness, anything that restored my vitality. Then weeks later, I heard the final information that completed the narrative. John abandoned Sharon after everything. After she destroyed 2 marriages, after she discarded 7 years with me. He didn't even want her permanently. I nearly laughed hearing this. He had obtained what he desired. A casual affair, a diversion, an escape. But he refused to keep her. She sacrificed everything for nothing. She attempted to contact me several times, but I never responded. One evening I encountered a mutual friend. He mentioned seeing Sharon at a local bar, drinking alone. She looks devastated, man, he remarked, like she's lost everything. I simply nodded, finishing my drink. I no longer cared about her. I was free. I lived according to my own terms, and for the first time in years, I felt authentic again. And that, more than vengeance, more than justice, was the most satisfying feeling possible. Thank you for watching.